Hello, welcome into episode 164 of the Stomp the Bus Show. I'm your host, Mark Harris, and it's going to be a little bit of NFL draft recap, a little bit of ASU men's basketball finalizing or close to finalizing its roster, and then some diamond sports, right? Baseball heating up and checking in on softball as well. So some random Big 12 news mixed in as well. So thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe on YouTube, rate and review on your podcast platform of choice. And let's get started. First of all, thank you all for watching my most recent episode. Had to take some time there to memorialize Steve Miller, and obviously, preview the draft for ASU, which ended up being a successful draft. My months long prediction of ASU having two first rounders came true. Came true a little bit quicker than I thought it would, with Max Iheanachor going at number 21 overall to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and obviously following Jordyn Tyson at number 8 going to the New Orleans Saints. So that aspect of it is excellent. And then you have obviously Abney drafted in the 5th round along with Keyshawn Elliott to the Detroit Lions and Chicago Bears, respectively. So overall, I would say this is a very good draft for ASU. It would have been great if a 5th guy could slide in there in the 7th, kind of similar to what happened with U of A with their corner who got taken by the Seahawks. I believe that was like the 4th to last pick, 3rd to last. I think it was I don't know. It was one of the last 5 picks of the draft. That didn't happen with like a Ghost Rouser or a Mateer. But I mean, no one who was expected to get drafted from ASU did not get drafted. So obviously Tyson going going 8th overall as the first Sun Devil off the board. Like, I'm so glad all of Tyson's just straight up productivity and just incredible highlight worthy skill set was rewarded from his college career, even though he does have some injury concerns. I am so glad all those things were rewarded and that NFL teams just watched enough of the tape to see how important this guy was for our offense and just how good he was. Like, again, I think one of the games in this stretch of ASU football, and I bring it up kind of a lot, but it's pretty important, is that game against UCF last year. And again, let's go back to that game. Cam Skattebo not playing in that game because that was after he got injured against Oklahoma State. ASU's defense just got ran over by RJ Harvey and the Knights. ASU had a punt block for a touchdown and then had a pick 6 right at the 1-yard line due to a special teams error by UCF, which LaTerrence Welsh. I was about to say LT Overton, but it was LT Welsh. Picked it off. Unfortunately, he couldn't make the whole year with the team because he stole one of his teammates' watches, but that's okay. And really, the story of that game was Sam Levitt and Jordyn Tyson just making incredible plays. And, I mean, that he had 2 touchdowns in that game. Okay, Mateer had the other. Yeah. And, like, just incredible. Like, that catch he had on the long it was like a 3rd and 8. Levitt just kind of hucked it up there, and Tyson just elevated and got it. Like, that was one of the best plays I've ever seen. And it turned out to be an incredibly important play. Like, if ASU doesn't beat UCF last year, all the great run in November that we all experienced that really pushed ASU over the edge to be a college football playoff team, that doesn't happen. It's just, ASU finished with a good year. They went 9-3, that's all good. Like, yay. No, with that game, as bad as ASU played as a team and really as a defense, without Skattebo, Tyson stepped up and he kept the season alive for ASU and then continued to play well against Kansas State, BYU, and Arizona. So I'm just so happy that he is getting rewarded for being just an incredible player. And I'd rather, if I'm Jordyn Tyson, being wide receiver number one would have been great. I would rather go to the Saints right now than the Titans. Just flat out. Like, if going to the Titans, you have to be the wide receiver one immediately. Their offensive just infrastructure isn't as good. I think Cam Ward, like I'm a Cam Ward fan, but today, like entering the 2026 season, Tyler Shuck looks like a better quarterback than Cam Ward. So you go with a better quarterback. You have an offensive head coach in Kellen Moore. You have another wide receiver in Chris Olave. So if you're Tyson, you don't have to be number one, right? You can slot in as the number two receiver in New Orleans and just kind of go about your business. You don't have to be the guy like Carnell Tate will have to be in Tennessee. You also have Travis Etienne at running back and a pretty good offensive line. Like it's just a much better overall situation. And so he gets rewarded by that. That gold and black zero is going to look really good in New Orleans. Like I'm really excited to watch him. And selfishly, again, as a Seahawks fan, like I'm very glad he did not go to the Rams. Now, who knows? The Rams, they might have just drafted Ty Simpson anyway, but that's a whole nother story. I don't have to watch him. Cardinals was never going to happen. Like my point is like he is not like on a team that I dislike, which is nice. And it's a good spot for him as well. So then, like, I'm just really happy for Tyson. He was very emotional. And I'm just happy that he was rewarded. And he's just a great Sun Devil. And he has the chance to be the best wide receiver that this school has put into the NFL. Like, since Ayuk, I think he can have a better career than Ayuk. I don't think that's crazy. So I'm just really happy for him. And I'm happy that he's going to an offensive coach. I just think that's so important with a guy like him. On to later in the first round. That's right. The Sun Devils had 2 first-round picks, along with Utah in the Big 12. Big 12, which I'd say had a pretty solid draft, tied with the ACC, which is just so on the nose that the Big 12 and the ACC had the exact same amount of draft picks, 38 apiece. Now, the difference is the Big 12 has, I believe, 1 fewer team. So it worked out that the Big 12 had like 2.4 per school, where the ACC had 2.2. One of those weird things, but I think it's an important point. And in terms of the first round, each had 6, only 1 fewer than the SEC. Now, the SEC dominated in terms of just total volume of the draft, which I do think is an important, just from a general college football standpoint. I do think the SEC just having the most overall I still think the Big Ten is the better conference because the Big Ten had better teams at the top, more first rounders. Like I would rather have that as a conference, but I do think it does have to be acknowledged the SEC's overall volume that it put into the NFL. Anyway, ASU definitely contributed to that first round with 2 first-round picks. The second, of course, being Max Iheanachor. Now, if you get past the weird thing with them trying to trade up for Mekhi Lemon and the Eagles were already on the phone and all that, like that's just annoying for like if you're a Steelers fan. In terms of Iheanachor, like again, going to an offensive coach, going to Mike McCarthy, who like pretty good offensive line guy, and I'm really happy for Max Iheanachor, man. Like he went higher than a lot of drafts or a lot of mocks expected. There were a lot of them that had him in like the late, he was in the back half of the first round, but like much later to Houston or New England. And I think we saw that like Houston or New England would have drafted him had he fallen that far. Houston drafts Rutledge, the guard from Georgia Tech, and New England took Caleb Lomu, who was the last of those 7 offensive tackles, right? Lomu was the last of them on the board. And a lot of them thought it would be Iheanachor would be the last on the board. Because it went Fano, Mauigoa, Proctor, Miller, Freeling, and then Iheanachor, and then the Patriots just kind of had to take Lomu. Anyway, so, Iheanachor, we all know his story. He really came into his own over the last 2 years at ASU, and the tape of him, I would say, doing better than just holding his own. Like the tape of him playing pretty well against David Bailey probably helped him. There was also tape from that UCF game last year of him really dominating Malachi Lawrence on the Knights last year in that 2024 game. And then also the Senior Bowl and the Combine, where he got Senior Bowl, he just looked great. And the Combine, he really just showed off his athleticism. And I mean, again, this is an incredible draft pick for Iheanachor, number one, but secondly for ASU, because now the staff, like, it's one thing to produce first round wide receivers. This is now the third first round wide receiver I've seen in just my short time following ASU football, right? N'Keal Harry, Ayuk, and now Jordyn Tyson. My point with that is it's not like ASU having a first round wide receiver in any random given NFL draft isn't really that head scratching or eye turning, right? It's just not like, and that's a credit to ASU. It's a credit to just like the general environment. Wide receivers, there's just way more in like Southern California. So theoretically you can recruit there. Of course, none of those three guys are from Southern California, but you get the point. Like it's not a huge stretch, but like, oh, ASU had a first round wide receiver. That's not crazy at all. First round tackle, I think it was, I'm not even going to speculate when it was because I don't remember. It's been a while. And again, tackles are there's a reason why 7 offensive tackles went in the first round of this draft. Getting a good one is very difficult. And like, there just aren't that many Max Iheanachors out there who are that big and that, athletic along with his size, but also have the feet and the injury history that's checks out. All these things, like there's not many of them. And so that's why there's 7 of them that went in the first round. And I think with a guy like Max Iheanachor, you can sell incoming offensive line recruits like, hey, like we just turned this guy into a first round pick. And it was a development story. There's no way around it with him. Like it was a development story. He was a high school basketball player, played 1 year of JUCO football, came along with Saga Tuitele. First year was rough, got thrown into the fire, and then the next 2 years he really showed his stuff. And this doesn't mean that like they're just going to land every single offensive line recruit. Like I don't think that's not what I'm implying, but it is a real concrete like evidence, proof of concept thing that you can sell to recruits, and you're not like being vague. It's not abstract. It's real. It's like, hey, look at the 2026 NFL draft. That guy taken 21st overall, who's going to make millions of dollars even with this first contract, right? Even if everything else goes wrong, he's going to be a multi-millionaire. He went to ASU and he was developed by our offensive line coach, who is still here. And I think you could see like that had to have played a role in them getting Jermaine Mitchell from JUCO, who was committed to Georgia beforehand. So I just think being able to sell a proof of concept of an offensive lineman going in the first round is very important for ASU. And we may not see the effects of it in the near future, right? Like a Jake Hildenbrand from Basha, maybe go somewhere else. Maybe it's just like, I don't want to, whatever it is. But for the next high profile offensive line recruit, you can sell that. And eventually, like, let's say you put another guy in the NFL who's like a third rounder next year, and maybe not even as highly touted as Iheanachor, you can just continue building up on that. So the first round like was a smashing success for ASU. It would have been a smashing success if Iheanachor had gone, if the Patriots didn't trade and they just picked at 31, and like if he went at the very, very end of the first round, like it still would have been a success. But it's even better that he went, 21st overall. And so if you were watching that draft as an ASU fan, like I wanted to see where these guys got picked, and we didn't have to sweat out the end of the first round being like, oh, is New England going to take him or whatever? Like, no, it was just off the board with like an hour to go in the first round. So that was awesome. Now on to the less awesome part of the draft. Keith Abney, it's ridiculous that he fell to the 5th round. As more time has gone by, it's ridiculous. And I want to emphasize the 5th round specifically because he got picked 157th overall in the 5th round to the Detroit Lions. I like the team that he's going to, partly because he was their first defensive back taken, and he was their only defensive back taken in this draft, that being the Detroit Lions. So that's good for him. I mean, the Lions have been a good team. They don't exactly have like the Legion of Boom secondary right now. They don't have the Houston Texans current secondary on their team. So, like, I think this is a good spot for him. I just think it's ridiculous that he went in the 5th round. I really do. And again, this isn't me being like an ASU homer. He was consensus. This is according to Nolan Bianchi of the Lions beat writer for the Detroit News. So this is a legitimate journalist. This is the tweet that he had when Abney was picked, and I'm going to show it on the screen and then read it out loud as I stall here. Okay. From the day Abney was selected, Lions select Arizona State cornerback Keith Abney II with pick 157. Abney was ranked number 66 on the NFL mock draft database consensus board. That's all you need to know. That is all you need to know from Nolan Bianchi. 66th overall would be 3rd round, beginning of the 3rd round. I wouldn't be complaining like this if he had fallen like to the beginning of the 4th round, kind of similar to Scadaboo, where Scadaboo was picked last year, like in that kind of range, like very beginning of day 3. Getting like halfway through the 5th round, I just think it's ridiculous that he fell that far. I honestly do. And I'm glad that he's going to a good situation and that he's being recognized as like one of the steals of day 3, which is very much a blessing and a curse. Like, I would just so much rather him go. I wanted the Seahawks to pick him when they took Julian Neal at the end of the 3rd round. Granted, like, I trust Mike McDonald, so I'm not going to throw a huge fit over it. Like, they had their reasons. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, but I'm just happy he lands with the Lions. And, I'll be watching him at training camp. He'll be one of the interesting guys to follow. Because, I mean, if he does, etch a little role in the team, like, they'll be playing in some high-profile games. So he's not just going to fade away into obscurity. So happy for Keith Abney that he got drafted. I am personally annoyed that it took as long as it did. He probably should have been like a late 3rd round pick. I don't think that's being a huge homer. Like, I think there was another one where he, on some other consensus, he was like 81st overall. Like, you should have been drafted on day 2, but whatever. All these teams are like, oh, let's draft these random tight ends. I don't know why so many tight ends went in the 2nd and 3rd round, but that's another discussion. So anyway, that's the Keith Abney part. Now to Keyshawn Elliott, ASU's final draft pick, who Keyshawn Elliott, he was selected same division by the Chicago Bears. 9 picks later, 166th overall. He is the only linebacker the Bears selected in the draft, which is a good sign for him. For whatever reason, he was selected in the – yeah. Okay, this is just – they just got it messed up. Round 4, pick 166, Keyshawn Elliott, Arizona State. What a career for Keyshawn Elliott, man. Like, to start your career at New Mexico State. Now, Pavia gets all the attention, deservedly so. I'm not here to dispute any of that, but like being quarterback, leading Vanderbilt, Heisman ceremony, all that. But I mean, Elliott was the only guy that was drafted. That includes Ghost Rouser as well. And I'm just really happy for him. Like, going to the Bears, like, that's again, like, that's a team that like needs defenders. And like, I think there will be a way for him to get on the field. And like, just, we saw last year, like, Keyshawn Elliott is a very smart player. Just kind of has like a nose for the ball type of thing, even though he's, not a huge turnover guy. The fact that he had 7 sacks last year is really important to me. And he's just a solid player. And, for a kid from Missouri, like, that's really cool. He gets to be on the Bears. And for him, he didn't have to wait as long. He didn't really fall. Like Keyshawn Elliott was widely projected as a 4th or 5th rounder, goes in the 5th round. So that's why I want to wrap this part up with like, yeah, the Abney drop was annoying and disappointing, but ultimately I think it's, if you're going to fall in the draft, I think it worked out for him in that sense. And then Elliott went in the 5th. And that's great. And, 4 picks doesn't like light the world on fire, but it's also a good, just solid place to be, And again, like you still have some guys from the 24 team who will play, like CJ Fight has not entered the draft. Clayton Smith next year, who knows, right? He has the athleticism. And then Levitt will be an NFL quarterback at some point. To what degree and how highly he goes, that's a whole different discussion. But you're starting to see that like the 2024 team, it wasn't just all scrubs, right? Now there were some guys who like they maxed out in college and like credit to them. And I'll get to some of the, undrafted free agents that ASU had, but like it's clear that that team had a decent level of talent, and that's being proven in these recent drafts and will in the 27 draft as well. I do want to shout out some of the guys who got signed to teams. Most of these players got to mini camp. So Jacob Rich Kangaika, I believe, is going to the Seahawks mini camp and somewhere else. Malik McClain is signing with the Jets. Jordan Crook and Miles Rouser are going to the Seahawks as camp invites. Yep. Okay. So those two. Nyland Green is going to the Falcons as a camp invite. Prince Dorba is going to the Buffalo Bills as a camp invite. And Xavier Alford is going to the Buccaneers as a camp invite. And that should be it, along with Shimon Mateer, who is signed with the Steelers. So of all those guys, I'll be honest, I think in terms of someone making a team out of these guys who weren't drafted, I think Shimon Mateer with the Steelers is by far the front runner here. And based on the fact that he was signed and these other guys were minicamp invites, that leads me to believe that like he would have been the 5th guy drafted for ASU if there were just more picks or if another team wanted to jump in there. But yeah, happy for all those guys. And like, hopefully their football career goes on as long as possible. I saw that Jesus Gomez was drafted by a Canadian Football League team. So I'm just happy for those guys. Like, hopefully they can make some money and, maybe make a roster, and we'll see, like make some practice squad, anything like that to keep their football career going as long as possible. So congrats to the guys drafted and the guys with other professional opportunities as well. All right. ASU basketball, not much has changed. As of Wednesday, April 29th, ASU men's basketball is 10th in the 2026 transfer basketball team rankings on 24/7. There's not much more musical chairs left in this. ASU has brought in 7 commits, 3 of whom are 4-star recruits, those being Dylan Shaw, Joel Foxwell, and Paulius Morauskas. Morauskas was considered to be a top 10 player in the portal. Top 10, 10th overall is the transfer, going to the 10th ranked team in the portal. We've talked plenty about him and his importance, along with Innocenti, Shaw, Foxwell, Marcus Vaughns, Nate Garcia. And then you add in Ben Defty, who is a German center who played at Boston University 25-26 season, pretty good. Averaged 15.9 points per game, 6.8 rebounds, 1.7 blocks on 66% shooting. Also shot 70% from the line. Um, 2 years at Boston College. I want to say Boston College, Boston University for the Terriers. It is going to be a level up in play for him. There is no doubt about that. But I feel much better with Ben Defty as your day one center than Nate Garcia with respect to Garcia. You now have 2 7-footers on the roster. And when you just kind of add it up all together, right? Defty and Garcia. So that's your 2 centers on the roster. Defty will likely start. Morauskas is the main forward. Then on your wings, you have Vaughns, Shaw. That's 5. Maybe they'll get another forward out there. So those 5. And then you add in Iheanachor and Foxwell as guards. And you continue to add in Bryce Ford and VJ Wallace from last year. That's 9 players right now. And VJ Wallace, I really don't have anything comment on. Like, he didn't really play last year. I'm glad to have him back on the team. And Bryce Ford as well. Like, I've talked enough about Bryce Ford. Like, I'm high on him. I think he was a little bit better than the stats indicate. He's a good shooter, and it's cool to have some continuity, some kind of local tie, and overall, like, happy for him that he's staying. And so, again, when you could roll out a starting lineup, let's go Morauskas, Defty, Shaw, Iheanachor, Foxwell is your main 5, right? That's 3 4-star guys in the portal. And then Iheanachor and Defty are guys with tons of playing experience. You bring off Ford and Vaughns as your main 2 off the bench. Garcia as your backup to Defty. And then VJ Wallace as kind of a 9th guy who could maybe give you something. Who knows? He does have some size. All in all, it's like and then you also add J. Rob Croy as the freshman as well, playing for his father. I don't know. I'm feeling pretty good about ASU men's basketball. Like, I don't think there's any sort of expectation that we're like going to win the Big 12 or anything, but you can make the tournament and make it as like an actual team that makes the tournament, not one of the additional, 8 or whatever that's part of the 76. Like, I think they can just make the tournament. And I don't think it's really going to, like, it'll be difficult, but I don't think it's some unreasonable expectation for ASU men's basketball to go like 21-12 next year, 20-13, kind of had that type of season. Like, really not that much. Like, there were a lot of teams like that made the tournament. Like, like a UCF of this past year, or one of these Big Ten teams. Like, it's on the table to do that. And I think Randy Bennett's done a good job acquiring talent, getting guys, a few guys, he's coached, right? A few guys he's coached against and are familiar with him. Garcia with Croy, Vaughn's coming with Patrick, and then Defty just is kind of another big man who's just been legitimately productive, albeit at a lower level. So I just wanted to shout out ASU men's basketball now that the portal is basically closed, and looks like we're in good shape, man. I mean, maybe not for a Final Four run or anything, but just having a pretty good season. Someone that could be a Final Four run is Masamba Diop going to Gonzaga. You know what? Like, I don't have anything bad to say about Diop. Like, I wish him the best. He's going to be fun to watch at Gonzaga. I think they're going to get the most out of him. And yeah, you know what? I'd rather get him in kind of a trade, get him for Iheanachor, Not that Iheanachor is better because he isn't, but you at least get something. And like Iheanachor does provide value primarily as a wing defender. So wishing the best for Job. Honestly, wishing the best for all these guys. Truett, Gerbevich is going to be a conference rival now. Cash Polk, you can see on the screen here, like uh, wishing these guys the best. So, but I think ASU men's basketball is in pretty good shape as regarding its total roster. All right, ASU baseball. Oh, before I go to ASU baseball, got to talk about two kind of news items. One that literally just came across my screen before I started recording. So the Brendan Sorsby thing, I think he does. So he's, for those who don't know, he just got caught gambling a ton over the last 3-4 years, and the biggest one being him placing bets on Indiana football while being an Indiana Hoosier. I think that's pretty self-explanatory why you can't do that in college athletics, and there's not really much to get into there. I don't think Brendan Sorsby's football career is over. I think he will play in the NFL. I think he's shown enough that like a team will draft him in next year's NFL draft. But I just don't see him playing college football this season. I would be very surprised. So that means that Texas Tech's quarterback this upcoming year will more than likely be Will Hammond. I don't think this is a bad thing for Texas Tech. I guess what I would say is like, I don't think losing Brendan Sorsby is just going to completely train wreck their season. And I think that Will Hammond, I think for Texas Tech, I think that he is a guy worth. There's a part of me that doesn't really get why they spent so much money on Sorsby, because I am a Will Hammond fan. Like, I like what I saw from him in the short time we saw him last year, if that makes sense. But like, Sorsby definitely provides a floor, right? It's just Texas Tech is just going to be at a talent advantage in a big way against most of these teams that it plays. And so how much is like the quarterback drop off even going to matter? I think that's a fair question. I think I guess to wrap it up with the Sorsby as it relates to Texas Tech, right? I just think that they're still going to be really good, but maybe they go from being an 11-1 team to a 10-2 team, right? I think it costs them like a win somewhere down the line in the season. But I don't know, maybe Hammond has the athletic juice. We saw him make some plays even against ASU where he didn't play that well in that game. He can move. Yes, he's recovering from an injury. Good for him in Texas Tech is that they have a pretty easy non-con to start the year, so they can get by with whoever their original third string guy was going to be. So all that is to say, I don't think Texas Tech is completely screwed, but I do think this hurts them a little bit. It probably costs them a game, 11-1 to 10-2, or 10-2 to 9-3, or 12-0 to 11, whatever it is, right? I think it hurts them a little bit because they do have a game against Houston early in the year, and Houston looks to be a pretty good team. And a part of me, if you're Dillingham, you see this news, you need to have a team meeting, be like, hey, you guys cannot bet. There's no wiggle room. You will get caught. The technology is insane of that, just them tracking you. They know when, you will not get away with it, right? And I think that's an important thing that the staff has to drill in these guys' heads, which, to be fair, I think they've probably done. And yeah, there's a part of me that just wants Cutter Boley and Jake Fetty locked away in a cabin in Alaska with no cell phone, so they just can't possibly have that happen to them or commit that mistake, rather. But anyway, that's how I kind of feel about it towards the Texas Tech angle. I think the Cincinnati angle of this is much more interesting because it's come out in the last day in the aftermath of the original reporting. They were alerted to this. I believe it was springtime of 2025. So this time last year, totally silent on it we know why, because they wanted Sorsby to lead a fairly talented Cincinnati team. And we kind of saw that in the first 2/3 of the college football season. Then they fell apart. But I can see why Cincinnati was like, hey, like, let's just deal with this later. We want to have our 2025 season be as good as it can be. I get why they did it, but also like, well, now it's come out that you knew. So they're going to have to deal with something. And this is something where, like, the NCAA is pretty toothless now, but it's not 100% toothless. And this is something where they could actually enforce in a real way. And so I don't know. If I'm a Cincinnati fan right now, I'm not feeling good. This has parallels to the end of the Herm Edwards era at ASU. Once the kind of news of the investigation broke in June 2021, you can kind of draw like, yeah, since Cincinnati, they had a decent year. They went 7-5, but like, and they had a good draft. I think they had 4 guys drafted, and similar to Jaden Daniels, like Jaden Daniels transfers, Brendan Sorsby transfers. But you look back and you're like, what was going on? Like, why? And you look at how they played at the end of the year, like they crumbled. So I don't know, like the near future for Cincinnati football, I feels like last year was a missed opportunity for them in terms of the guys they had on the roster, and then now you have to deal with the aftermath of not reporting anything about Sorsby. So that's something that's not going to affect ASU football directly this year, but I think ASU hosts Cincinnati in 2027, and that means like there's a chance that like Cincinnati could just be like the worst team in the league in 2027. So that could affect ASU football down the road. Not so much of a big deal right now. I wanted to touch on that. I also wanted to touch on this news from Ross Dellinger that came across my timeline about an hour ago. The tweet reads, Big 12 has approved its private capital deal with Redbird Capital, the first such arrangement from a major NCAA conference. Schools have a choice to opt in for roughly $30 million in capital, and league gets at least a $12.5 million infusion as part of a strategic partnership. I'll say this. I get why the Big 12 is doing this. If I am ASU, I would be very careful with this, and I don't think you just take the money and be like, oh, it's money, it's right here. Like, I just don't think you do that. And I think that they need to be very careful, or if they do take the money, then they need to understand. They need to know that it's going to the bill is going to come due eventually. And so with private equity, man, like I get why the Big 12 is doing it. And I think John Kurtz has made a point of like, everyone criticizes, like the Big 12 needs to do what it needs to do to close the gap between these leagues that just have way more resources with them. And by the way, like the Big 10 has, hasn't gone this far with private equity like the Big 12 is doing, but it's been kind of in those waters, right? And so they could do it next. I understand like why the Big 12 would think of this. In some ways, like having a short-term mindset is good for you in college sports. Like all these teams, like you just need to get in what's coming in 2 years. You need to get in the Super League, whatever that league is, whether it's the Big 10 and SEC, whatever it is, right? And so I could see some teams being like, screw it, we need to push all our chips in right now. We cannot be left behind. We need to get in this threshold. And so if ASU does it from that perspective and goes like takes the full 30 million share, whatever it is, I could understand that. I don't think that ASU is at risk. It just seems like there are schools in the ACC and Big 12 below ASU's stature that will get let in, which makes me think that ASU will get let in. So I'm not going to dive too much into that today, but I do think it's worth mentioning, and it's something to keep an eye on as the offseason continues. That's kind of what I'll say about the Big 12 approving its private capital deal with Redbird Capital, according to Ross Dellinger. All right, baseball. Boy, what a difference a week can make, huh? Baseball is like ranked 19th now in D1 baseball. In some other ones, they're like 21st. I saw one where they're 25th. All of that is to say, like, they are a ranked team. And look, they are 31-14 overall in the Big 12. I believe they're in second place in the Big 12 baseball standings. Got to check that right now. Let's share this tab. Yes, ASU baseball is in second place in the Big 12. They have the second. They have the third best overall record because West Virginia has fewer losses, but they have the second most wins of the Big 12. That W3, they swept Baylor, and they swept Baylor looking good. They didn't rely solely on Landon Harrison to hit bombs. Their two main pitchers came to play. They won a 4-2 game on Saturday, which, like, I was again having a conversation with my friend, and we were just talking about, like, it's cool that we won a game 4-2. We didn't need the offense to be excellent, and we still won. Beating Baylor, like, that was just a big. That was a big series win, and it was important to sweep. It really was, because ASU's previous two series against Utah and BYU, they won those series, right? But you look, okay, you lose pretty big on a Friday night at home against Utah to open the series, 10-4. You win again, but you have to hold on for dear life with 14 runs on the board. And then you beat them on Sunday 5-2. You then lose to U of A in the midweek Territorial Cup game. Not midweek. It was a Monday. Not the end of the world. You already have the season series over them. It's not the end of the world, but it's still a loss. You then, again, you get run ruled by BYU. You give up 19 runs, and you lose by 10 points to a not that great BYU team. You beat them again, 13-0, and then you give up a huge start to BYU, but you do win the game. And so you have two series wins, but it was a rough, like, rocky road to get to that 2-1 weekend. And then, I mean, you lose to New Mexico State in 11 innings. Like, I didn't pay attention to that game super closely, but I was like, oh, is New Mexico State like a sneaky one of those good, like, lower tier teams? And it was like, no, they have a losing record overall. So pretty abysmal loss. There's no real spin I can put on that. Like, losing to New Mexico State is just horrible. It'll mess with your metrics. It'll mess with your RPI, and it's just not good at all. But again, you put up 11 runs twice against Baylor, and then you win the other game 4-2. That is just, like, that was a very calming weekend series. And sometimes a sweep can really just, like, get things kind of back on track. Now you have probably the most important series of the year. UCF is right behind you in the Big 12 race. They are 14-7 in the Big 12, which is exactly what ASU is. ASU, for whatever reason, is ahead of them in the standings. If you can take 2 or 3, you get to 16-8 overall in Big 12 play, and they're at 15-9. That'll give you some separation. You also want to hold off West Virginia and TCU, although TCU is a bit less important because ASU does have the series win over them. You win this series against UCF, then you will almost certainly be a 2 seed at worst in the NCAA tournament. And yeah, you've got Oklahoma State, and they're pretty 28-17, but they're 500 in the Big 12, and you host them, so you should expect to take 2 of 3 from Oklahoma State at Grand Canyon, and then you close the year at Houston, who is the worst team in the league, 4-17 in the league, 18-25 overall. If you can get through this UCF hurdle, it is not – the rest of the final stretch lays out pretty well. So, the at Missouri is a weird – I just don't know why this is scheduled, but maybe it helps. And if this is one of those, like, if you take 2 or 3 from UCF and then you lose at Missouri, then like that's fine. That, like, no harm, no foul. That would put you at 16 and 8 in the Big 12, and then if you lose to Missouri, you would be 33 and 16. I don't think that would hurt you that much with the schedule you have ahead. It would be cool to win that. It'd be cool to freaking sweep, but it's important to win this series at UCF. And I'm glad Willie Bloomquist mentioned this. I'm glad they have basically a whole 4 full days of not playing a game, right? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And then, Thursday, I'm sure they're flying out there, but this is good. And look, now ASU with Baylor, BYU, Utah, U of A, West Virginia is the one loss, Kansas State, and TCU. ASU has 6. Yeah. ASU has 6 Big 12 series wins to 1 Big 12 series loss. If you make it 7 wins, like, then you're just really stacking them up, and you can put yourself in good position. So it has not been the smoothest ride to get to this 31-14 record. And at times in those series against the Utah teams and the ensuing midweeks in between those, right? You have a loss to UNLV, U of A, New Mexico State. Like, these midweeks, I'm glad we don't have one this week, because you don't have to worry about losing it. They haven't been helpful to you, but like, college baseball teams trip up against midweeks all the time. That's just kind of part of it. So I'll just end it with this. Like, winning at Orlando, getting 2 out of 3 or better, will ease a lot of people's concerns about this team, and it will continue to set you up for a decent run in the last stretch. All right, now wanted to touch on softball. Softball doing well overall with a 35-16 record. Season is more close to the end for them. Not a weird last few series, right? You sweep Houston, and then you get swept by Texas Tech. Now, Texas Tech is like the second best team in the country. That's fine. You've had some series losses in the April. You lose Kansas 2 out of 3. You lose to UCF 2 out of 3. You'll make the tournament, but if you're ASU softball, you want to get this series sweep at BYU to set yourself up for a good standing in the Big 12 tournament, because that gets you to 38-16, lessens your not good conference record, and that'll probably get you in the tournament. BYU is not a good team, 18-30 entering this series, so this is an important one. You don't want to let the really good start you had be forgotten. So wanted to touch on ASU softball. Not quite, the super high level season that we're accustomed to seeing them have, but solid season nonetheless. And both bat and ball sports are doing fairly well in Tempe. All right, I think I mentioned everything. Overall, good NFL draft for ASU. ASU men's basketball in pretty good shape. We'll see what happens with the Brendan Sorsby situation and how it reflects the 2 red and black schools he is associated with. And then ASU baseball, ASU softball, just let's hope they can get things in stride as the season concludes. That'll be it for this episode. Thank you for watching. Honestly, last few episodes with the transfer portal stuff in basketball and Randy Bennett's hiring, gotten a little bit more traction on YouTube. So thank you for watching, and thank you for listening on podcasts as well. And again, this has been episode 164 of the Stomp the Bus Show. Please like and subscribe on YouTube. Please rate and review on your podcast platform of choice. And as always, go Sun Devils.